We're here today in the reception of Triodos Bank, and it's not like the normal reception you would find in a high street bank or any investment bank or any bank in the world, I think. If you can see here, everything in this area is recycled or reused, from the plastic chairs to the lights to the carpet. And you can see here the sorts of companies that Triodos deal with. People like Neil's Yard, organic food companies, and they've recently won an award for the Best Bank in the Better Society Awards, and that's something very close to the heart of the Royal Wealth Club. And we're going to go upstairs now to meet Alex Higgins, who presented on the 23rd of January at Bordeaux Quay in our successful event. Hello, we're at Triodos today, and as you'll have seen from the footage when we came into the reception, Triodos is quite a funky place, isn't it? But before we start talking about Triodos, I'd like to introduce you to Alex Higgins today, who presented at our event on the 23rd of January. Why did you join Triodos, and what were you doing before you came along?
So before I joined Triodos, I'd been a banker for 9 years or so. Done sort of the usual rounds in the bigger high street banks, and I came to a point where I really liked what I did, helping organisations, lending finance, learning more about organisations, but felt that the company I was working for didn't quite align to my values. So I found Triodos, which obviously fully aligns to my values of helping customers and using money for good, but also Triodos aligns to its customers' values. So its customers believe in what Triodos is trying to do, and the same route for Triodos and its customers.
So what do you think is the best thing that Triodos do?
I think the best thing Triodos does is actually the whole ethics of using money as a force for good, as they say. So we only lend to organisations that make a positive impact. I think we're very conscious about the organisations we lend to and where the money goes. Being 100% transparent as well, so everyone we lend to and everyone we invest in, you can find online. Even things of, you can find out how much our CEO gets paid, to how much the lowest people get paid, to, if you read our accounts, they're very thorough, our impact reporting, so we try and be as transparent as you possibly can be as a bank. I think that's a real, true reflection of the values of Triodos and what it's trying to be.
Okay, and I think we touched on a point there which will be of interest to a lot of people in today's highly paid executive world. Is there a limit on how much the chief exec gets paid compared to the rest of the company?
Yeah, so if you look at the banking world as an industry standard, you generally find there's about 300 times pay difference between the people on the lowest pay and the chief execs at the top. We know these guys get paid millions and millions. At Triodos, they've limited that to 10 times. So the chief exec of Triodos won't earn more than 10 times. I think at the moment he's on about 9.7 times, which is a really good thing, because if he wants to get paid a bit more, everyone has to go up as a group. And we do pay these sort of core workers, etc. and so forth, above the industry average. I think it just reflects the ethics of the organisation.
And do you feel more part of a team because of that?
Yeah, I think the spirit and the culture of the organisation. The managing director of the UK, he'll walk around the building. He's very good at knowing people's names, and also the management structure isn't too high. So we've got our MD, we've got the heads of various departments, and then team leaders, and then sort of rest of the co-workers, as it were. So you're not too disjointed from the top, and I think that feeling. And every Monday all the co-workers get together in the building. We have a meeting where we always get sort of updated on what's going on, and then each team might do an update per week, and that's a really good way of the team to keep it connected, and everyone understands what's going on through the whole organisation. Because you'll find, for me as a relationship manager, I'm lucky I get to go out there and see the organisations that we're lent to, talking to the customers. But people who are in finance or risk or something like that, don't get to go out there that often. So we try and reflect that as much as possible for the co-workers to understand the sort of the good that we're working towards and what the money's doing.
How do you think Triodos would fit into the core themes of the Royal Wealth Club, such as health, wealth and happiness?
I think there's sort of a couple of things that fit into. I guess with health, if you look at the organisations that it's helping, a lot of it is around people's health and well-being. So we'll invest into organisations that specialise in things like autism or people with learning difficulties, so that they have a better standard of living. Try and get people to be independent living. So rather than sort of going into homes or anything like that, it can be living in their homes as long as possible. And care's a much growing sector. As the NHS is getting more and more strained, they can do less and less and less. And things like end of years care, they call it, hospice care. People, unfortunately, it's their time, and they'd much rather be in their homes. So we're trying to support charities that keep people in their homes rather than put them in a hospital bed, etc. and so forth. So I think in the sense of what your money is going to be doing, you can directly see that's affecting people's health and well-being. I think the wealth part of it, if you look at being a sustainable and ethical bank, that sort of flows through how the business runs as well. So Triodos as a bank in the 36 years it's been around has never made a loss, and our depository receipt holders, which are in effect our shareholders, will see a dividend of around 3-4% year on year, and they have done year on year through recessions, through booms, bust. So you're not going to get this great up and down, but it's a real steady investment that will be sustainable through a long term. So if you're sort of thinking of a long, steady term investment, that's what we're looking for. We're not in the business of doing short-term gains, short-term cash. It's steady, long-term investments.
I see. And tell us more about a project perhaps in Bristol that Triodos is helping with or investing in.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest successes is an organisation called Bristol Together. So this organisation, it was an individual had this idea that actually one of the big problems is people come out of prison and then they re-offend. It's something like 80 or 90% of people re-offend when they come out of prison. And the main reason is because they don't have anything to do. They come out of prison and they're sort of doing the same that they were doing. There's no change. So he had the idea of, actually, I'm going to buy a property and then we'll have some master craftsmen who will then train these ex-offenders, do up the property, sell it on, and then buy another property. And that was hugely successful. And we originally lent to them sort of your standard bank debt, as it were. But now he's so successful, he's managed to keep hold of the properties and then he rents them as affordable living. So as well as helping ex-offenders, he's now helping with affordable living. You find that only about 10% of the offenders re-offend, and he's expanded it to Glasgow, Birmingham and other major cities. And he's also used our corporate finance, which is a direct investment into the organisation. So people have actually bought equity into the organisation and we're getting return back off that. So it's a real success story of how Triodos has used our sort of standard bank debt, our corporate finance guys, which is something a little bit different, direct investment for people, and also how it's helped ex-offenders and started creating more affordable living. But it's scalable and it's sustainable. He's managed to spread out to other cities. So there's lots of successes on that story.
No, that sounds a great project. And also on the investing side, you have, I think you invest in renewables and things like that as well.
Yeah, so we have corporate finance that would do direct investment into organisations such as Bristol Together, but also they do an awful lot of community renewables. So if you're looking at a solar farm, you may get someone is also the megawatts. When you go above 5 megawatts, it all changes. So they generally sell half it to the community. So Bristol LNG, we helped with them, and that was a direct investment. But we also have what we call our investment universe. So this is when you give it to a fund manager and then he'll invest it into organisations, but these organisations have to be within the Triodos universe, and we will pull companies out of that. For the example I always use is Google. We pulled out of 2 years ago because they bought a company that its subsidiary did arms for, built robots for arms, etc. and so forth. And so that's something we're definitely not into, and we don't invest in oil and all the other bits and bobs of it. So yeah, we do direct investments to local organisations that you can see through our corporate finance website, but also we have this universe that if you just want to sort of know that your money is being looked after but don't want to be picking around of exactly where it's going, sure. You've got that option as well.
And I can see, having from my financial advisor world, analyse the funds, you can see the performance of your ethical funds actually is as good as any other fund that's out there.
Yeah.
And in a way, I guess you're investing in the companies of tomorrow that aren't exposed to all the issues that might be coming up with oil and stuff like that.
No, that's exactly it. I think this whole idea that it's ethical, so therefore it's more expensive, we won't get as good a return, I think that's really changing now, especially if you think, real good example is solar panels. If you look at how much they've gone down because they're being used more and more and more, more commercially used, I think they've come down by something like 5 times in value in the last 10 years, and actually it's now accelerating. So soon, solar energy will be one of the cheapest produced. I think it is, again, it's that longer term thinking. You're investing in something for the longer term rather than having these fluctuations up and down.
And talking of longer term thinking, what do you think the future holds for an organisation like Triodos?
So Triodos, we've been going on for sort of strength to strength really, especially when the 2008 crash happened. Because we don't play around with money markets, we only lend what we have on deposits. we started getting more deposits because people were worried and trying to protect, these £50, 50 grand checks that were sort of running around with trying to deposit somewhere else. So we had an influx of deposits, which we could then lend out to organisations. So that gave us a real sort of foundation to sort of grow, and we've grown sort of 15-20% year on year since then. I think our next step is we'll be launching our personal current account. So we do business current accounts, we do business savings and personal savings. But the personal current account is sort of the big game changer for us, really, because we go just from sort of a lending business bank to an actual sort of challenger bank, as it were, and that will really propel us to be able to make more of an impact, because all these people will come over with their personal accounts, hopefully, and bring their deposits with them, and again that just enables us to lend more out. And I guess if you look further beyond that, if you look at Triodos in Holland, they're already doing residential mortgages for the residential market, and that's all aligned to how energy efficient your house is, will reflect what interest rate you get. So it's still having that impact of, if you've got a really sustainable house, you'll get a really good interest rate. So it still keeps with the core mission. And I think Triodos will always, as an organisation, we're always looking for new ways to be doing things, innovative ways to be making an impact to people all the planet. So I think, what the future holds, it'll be really interesting.
Okay. Well, and where can people find out more about Triodos?
So Triodos website is www.triodos.co.uk. It's got sort of, as I say, everything on there that you'd want, from personal to business, all the way through to explain the company, the ethos around the company, and then things like the Global Alliance for Banking Values, as an alliance of ethical and sustainable banks that have all come together so they can lobby to governments. There's links to that website as well. So if you're international and you're looking for other banks around the world, you can go on there as well and give you some ideas about ethical and sustainable banks.
Okay, well, thank you very much for today, Alex.
Thanks,
I really appreciate it. Thank you today for watching as well. If you want to find out more, obviously triodos.co.uk and theroyalwealthclub.com. And if you want to change the way you invest and change your own world, then come to a future event. Thank you.